Good evening, all. I think we're going to have a tight, informal group tonight. So, that's not a bad thing. So thanks for being here. So if I go to share a screen, Gay, I need you looking out for people coming in.
Yep, got it.
So we've got a little time as we're waiting for people to get in here. If you'd like to share your current situation a little bit with the group, we'd love to hear that. I'm a ECE teacher in Louisville at a end of the line building for emotional behavior disability students. So we're kind of like the last wall in the pipeline to prison scenario. And I think we do great work, but it's one day at a time. And we just need to be conscious in having the discussion around racial justice. And I think what we've seen from the United States and Kentucky response around COVID-19 overlaps so heavily with how we respond to racial justice. It cannot be ignored. It's a system. So with that, maybe Vaughn or Elena or Gay.
We should go with Elena, the lovely and talented.
Thank you. So I am Elena Post, and I think probably everybody on this call is either knows my name by now or already knows me. And and I thought it was really important to have this meeting so that we can start to figure out ways that we can mobilize in our area, because I know that Jefferson County has done a really good job with getting organized and having their voices heard. And I really think that Northern Kentucky can do the same thing. Even though I know there may not be as many of us who are on the same page, I feel like we've already made some strides in making our voices heard. So I'm hoping that doing some more action days and getting ourselves together and having a collective voice will help us to figure out how we can, if nothing else, at least get our schools to understand our situation better and help us out in our requests. So yeah, Yvonne.
I'm Yvonne Rivera. I teach Spanish just like Elena does, but to little people, kindergarten through 5th. And they're cute as buttons, but man. And I was invited to something with National Educators United in December, and that's kind of what Kentucky Educators United is kind of a offshoot from. And I know you remember when Arizona went on strike, and the reason Arizona went on strike is because of a marvelous woman named Rebecca Gorelli. She was a teacher in Chicago and then went there for health reasons and was like, wait a minute, you mean that we can't blah? And you mean we don't have this and we don't have that? And she was like, no. It doesn't have to be like this. And they got a 20% raise out of it. So she knows something about something. But she noticed that it doesn't matter what state you're in, people are fighting the same battles. They want to put in charter schools. They want to have more and more tests, a very lucrative business testing. They think that, teachers make too much money. They think your class is larger. They think that some kids are expendable, that we don't, we're just going to take the cream of the crop, and there are kids who have and kids who have not, and, those that have not deserve not. It was just over and over. And, another year with more budget cuts. We're not the only state that is not being funded at the same level as it was in 2008. You know, we have more kids, but in constant dollars, we have less money. So that's what National Educators United has been doing. And I thank them so much because they helped us so much to put together this town hall. They are just wonderful people. And I will shut up now so that you can tell me who you are.
Would you call on somebody, Yvonne?
I will abuse A. Leffler because her name begins in A and she's probably used to it by now.
It's Andrea. Equally hard to say. I'm a teacher in Boone County, and I'm just you know, here kind of observing today because we're a little bit concerned about returning to school sooner than planned, and some of the measures that they're taking and the transparency that seems to constantly be behind and things like that. So we're just trying to figure out how we can mobilize, what we can do, and how we can keep ourselves safe. And my battery is going to die soon, so I'm probably going to turn my screen off, but I'll be
Your battery dies. Would you call on somebody else? We haven't heard.
I just got to find my charger. Oh goodness, how about this dear JCPS who's right next to me in the pictures?
I know who that is. That's me. Hi, my name is Gay Adelman. I'm a parent of a recent graduate from a JCPS quote unquote failing school who recently graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy as a Marine pilot. So clearly the title failing school is manufactured. They're trying to justify ways to take over our schools. And that's what made me aware of the battle that's going on and some of the things that they were doing to my son's school to try to turn it into a charter school ended up leading to myself and another parent forming an organization called Dear JCPS. And then when I realized, we went to an NPE conference, National Network for Public Education is another group that is a national leading organization that provides us with a great deal of support. Diane Ravitch, you may have heard of her. I went to an NPE conference a few years ago and realized that all of this was part of the Broken on Purpose privatization agenda. And so that's what caused us to form Save Our Schools Kentucky. So Yvonne and I are co-founders of Save Our Schools Kentucky as well. And we've been in Frankfurt a lot, trying to fight charter schools and vouchers. And tonight I'm just here clicking the switch for you guys, but anything we can do to support, you know, we're all in this together, so.
Gay's a goddess.
But before you go, Gay, will you please call on somebody we have not heard from?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Kristen Franks.
Just kidding. Hold on a second. Hi, I have two Pomeranian dogs.
I have that dog.
Wolfie is being a little turkey head. I just sat down for dinner and realized I almost missed this call, so I apologize. But basically, I am a middle school teacher in Boone County Schools, and I've been teaching them in my 20th year of teaching. And I'm just very concerned. I'm a parent of two daughters. I have a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old. And I'm concerned about their safety and also my safety as an educator. I'm very upset with how the media, I don't know if it's media, I think it's more like social media, just or the public in general. I just feel like there's a lot of negativity right now and hostility towards educators, and it's very upsetting, and I think there needs to be some changes. And so I've been looking into forming and like getting into different groups, trying to get some kind of unification with people that have the same like-mindedness. I've been very disappointed with our union, unfortunately. I don't know what's going on. They've been pretty vocal in the past, and ever since this has happened in March, I haven't heard a lot. except for who to vote for. And that's important, of course, but I really don't feel like our voices are being heard right now. So that's why I'm here, to listen to other perspectives and hopefully make something happen.
Thank you, Kristen. Would you mind calling on somebody we have not heard?
Oh my goodness. Oh no.
I think it narrowed down to Melissa and
Melissa, you're at. Maybe.
If she can't get on, I know who she is. She's a
And
parent in.
it's okay. Some people want to remain anonymous, and I don't want to put them on the spot, but we'd love to hear from you, Melissa. I guess your third option is 859.
Ooh, the 859 one. Let's
Yeah.
do that. 859-757-9022. You're on. Oh, you're on mute, I think, though.
They may be having trouble because they're on a phone. When I'm on a phone on Zoom,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is difficult. So Bobby Joe, would you like to chime in? Otherwise, we'll go on to the slides.
I'll go ahead. My name is Bobby Joe. I was invited by Gay. I'm here as a parent. Also, I am part of 15 District PTA. I just want to see what I kind of want to see what you guys are talking about, and also take some information back to the district. I have, been talking with Gay and some of the people in our area, and I have been a big believer of making change. I have talked about that with Gay and Yvonne as well, and all of this is stuff that I want to see changes within our district. So I am here to listen and see what I can bring back into our district within our PTA, and take to our board and see if they will be able to listen and possibly make change. So that is why I am here.
Thank you, Bobby Joe. So I'm going to go ahead and start the slideshow, and I appreciate everyone's time, and hopefully we can do another if needed in Northern Kentucky. But we are Kentucky Educators United, and we are an offshoot of National Educators United. There we go. And, I think National Educators United formed because we were collectively frustrated with seeing a teacher union that is not going to center racial justice or social justice. I think that was the tipping point. And it's not to say that we're a separate organization. Most of our members are members of either NEA or AFT. What is the other one, Yvonne? American Federation
of Teachers, AFT. And that's nationwide. I've yet to meet somebody who's not a member of their union as well.
Yeah, I frankly was very disappointed with, in having done a lot of racial justice work in Louisville, the response from the state. So there was Kentucky 120 group that was all in for the pension, getting out to Frankfurt for the pension. But then when it came to defending or speaking out about the bills around gang related measures and or armed security officers in every school statewide, I'm like, where is my statewide representation? Because it's clearly targeting people of color. And so in the absence of knowing that answer, I'm going to explore KEU and NEU. until I get that clarity. So that's where I am. So I think we pretty much introduced ourselves. Yeah. So I'm going to skip that. So I think we're on a track to where we're not going to need breakout groups, in which case, in order to keep people from all trying to talk over top of each other, there is a process. If you would go to chat and type the word stack, that will let our facilitators know that you want to make a comment or have a question, and that just keeps the conversation flowing to where we're not trying to talk over each other constantly. So, and we'll get back to that too. I'm sure we'll review this before we get into that. And there's a little more. So I guess questions on Stack before we get into it. It is a neat little teacher tool if you're teaching 30 kids from a multicultural perspective. And it gives you an opportunity as a teacher to center Black and unheard voices. So if you ask them to type stack and you're paying attention to who's doing that on a consistent basis, you may want to go ahead and move the children of color up to the front so we can hear their perspectives first. And with that, I think never mind the agenda. We're off the agenda. You never saw that. And I'm going to turn it over to, I think, is Elena next? Who's next?
Elena's after the agenda, and we're kind of skipping that. So it's Elena time. Yay!
Okay, so KEU, I actually am a new leader member of KEU. Yay! So I think Greg did a great job already of giving you guys an idea of the need for KEU and how it is a branch of NEU. And if you look around on Facebook, you guys will see that a lot of different states have their own Educators United group on there. So be sure to join the Kentucky one. They need our support. So here's a little bit more information where NEU was started by educators, educator activist groups. I think Yvonne explained about Rebecca in Arizona. I met a few other people the other night from New York and Virginia, all really great speakers, Michigan as well. So very inspiring people. If you guys get a chance to go to more events run by NEU, I would definitely recommend it. In December of 2019 is when they launched NEU, and now they're over 5,000 members. And I think it's probably growing faster than what this has on here, because even recently I think more people have probably joined on, like me, given the situation that we're in. So let me see if I'm on track here with the next slide, if I left anything out. But yeah, we invite you to join us along with your caucus colleagues. So I'm trying to get everybody who is in my Facebook group to join KEU as well, to kind of be a combined group of voices. Next slide, are we on the Why Now slide? So we're hosting a town hall now. I requested it after last week because I said we are in desperate need in Northern Kentucky to figure out something. After talking with many of you on this call, after talking with other people in my school, my family, I decided we have to do something else. And I need help because obviously now that school has begun, we're all overwhelmed, we're all busy, but I can't let this fall to the wayside because I feel like if we let it do that, and we're going to be pushed in before we're ready. And I feel like it's going to have detrimental effects. So like it says on the slide, we want to ensure safe reopening plans. It's not that we don't want to go back. I very much want to go back. I just want to do it under safe circumstances. And I feel like even the hybrid plan, the 50% capacity, all the things that we're being told are safe I don't feel is necessarily safe. So there are lots of different things that we can do, and we're going to find out more of those things tonight. So here's another, I have to be on my slide to read, so are you guys moving along here? Sorry. There it is. Okay, I see it. Okay, so now, sorry about that. I have someone who's trying to message me and I have to have my sound on. So educators are coming together nationally to decide on a set of expectations. We need to do this as well, a set of demands for when we will safely return. And the people setting policies for schools, most of them are not educators. You guys have seen the Boone County School Board. You've seen what they say and what they believe. We know that masks are not magic wands. We know that things will not be normal for a while, and we can't pretend that it is normal, or people are going to get sick. People are going to die, unfortunately. So it's really important that we try to come together and figure out some things that we are comfortable doing to push the Northern Kentucky schools to listen to us and to hopefully, you know, kind of push back on their plans and think more carefully about what it's going to do to our communities. And I believe we are at the Jeff Hester video now, Yvonne.
You're on mute, Yvonne.
I hate when I do that. Dr. Jeff Hester is an authentic rocket scientist, a real live one. And he was one of the astrophysicists to help design the camera on the Hubble Space Telescope. And when other people were saying in June, you know, that curve is going to go around, he looked at the data on COVID-19, that on how things had gone in other countries and New York, and he's the one that predicted, you know, the opposite is going to happen. It is going to get much worse in June and July. And of course, he was right. You know, he's a guy who can really crunch numbers. And he has a personal interest in safer tutor schools. His wife is an elementary principal in a Title in Arizona. Two of his daughters are teachers in Arizona, and his grandchildren go to public schools in Arizona. So with his permission, we are showing a part of a video that was shown at National Educators United. Can you get the video going, Greg?
Sorry, I struggle with mute button issues too. So you need the bottom link here is what you're asking?
Yes, for his video.
That was not it.
That is not it. Here, let me put it in the chat again. Do you want me to put it in the chat again?
Well, let's see if this works. That's not it either.
Okay, let me put it in the chat again. There it is.
Let me get to chat.
That link in the slide is to the entire presentation he gave, but it's 40 minutes long, and I knew you guys didn't want to do that. I mean, you can if you want to, but did you see it in the chat?
I am so sorry. It is.
Hey.
It's chat is under more, and I'm working on it. There we go.
While we're waiting, I just want to give an update. A couple of people have been having trouble with T-Mobile. Apparently there's an issue in the area where several people are having trouble with their lines today and yesterday. So I think we would have more people on our call if it weren't for that. So be sure and spread the word, and we'll share the link for people to see what was discussed afterwards.
So this is what's coming up with the link, Yvonne. I don't think I have the right one, and I am sorry. You're on mute still.
It looks like it's about four spots down. Is it that one that says Jeff Hester?
Jeff Hester MPG.
Thank you. Somebody that knows what they're doing technology wise.
So everybody out there has seen
Do you guys hear sound? Oh, for the love of God. The last time we did this, it worked.
You know, maybe we can just put his whole 40-minute video somewhere and tell people how interesting it is. I do have the things from Dr. Stack that should work.
I think this is the 11-minute video. If everybody can hear it, I can.
You can hear it. I don't know
Yeah.
why we can't hear it, though.
That is so weird because I get that from my students in my classroom too. I stopped using any videos. You guys cannot hear it. Okay. I was at 90%. I don't know if 100% will matter, but
Gay, do you think you can share it?
okay.
I think the problem is that you're showing it through Screencastify.
I think there's a lot of problems that I haven't figured out either.
I was gonna say, could one of you guys who are very familiar with his video just touch on some key points really quick, and then we can maybe move on and post that later?
Sure, exactly. One of the things that he does is explain how that R thing goes. People have been hearing about R over and over again. And can you rewind the video just enough so we can see the previous slide?
I have it
Greg?
if you're on right now. I think we can hear it.
Oh, you think so? Okay.
Try it.
Let's try. Yeah, he touches on.
out there has seen
You hear that?
pictures like this day in and day out.
Did that work?
Yes, it was.
Okay, I didn't pause it. So what he's getting into, to give you a backdrop as it is apparently loading, is the positivity rate is 1. And if we're serious about reducing the curve for COVID-19, he is discussing issues around that. My goodness.
He also discusses about what is happening now
Concept.
is it working now?
You hear it?
Idea of the reproduction number is fairly straightforward. Reproduction number tells you how many people an average sick person, typical sick person is. So if the reproduction number is equal to 1, that just means that I give it to one person and they give it to one person and they give it to one person. And so when you see something that's flat in these numbers, that means you're looking at a reproduction number of 1. If the reproduction number is greater than 1, now I'm guessing that there's some of you out there who remember the old commercial, the actress selling shampoo, and she says, I told 2 friends and they told 2 friends, and so on and so forth. And what happens then, of course, is the number grows. And so if the reproduction number is greater than 1, then the number of cases increases with 1. And if the reproduction number is less than 1, I give it to half a person, they give it to half a person, whatever, and it tailors away. So this is all about the reproduction number when you talk about what's going on with this. And of course, I'm sure there are some geeks out there somewhere, so I feel duty bound to point out that in the simplest case, that's what the mathematics of reproduction number looks like. And now I will move on. So what can we do with that? Well, that's the reproduction number. The next thing that you have to grapple with COVID, and it's actually one of the hardest things in a practical sense of trying to deal with it, is the fact that COVID takes time. It's slow moving. So, for example, here's Virginia. I think it's kind of fun, but in some respects, the COVID curve in Virginia looks a tremendous deal like the state itself. I don't know if that was orchestrated. There's Carla chuckling. Yeah. The first question when you look at this is, when did it happen? What are you seeing? And it turns out that when you see the cases that appear today, you are seeing history. Because a case that was counted in one place, a case that was counted here, actually was someone who was infected back here. And on average, that time gap is about 2.5 weeks. So it takes time because you get it, you're infected. And then you go for a while and you're asymptomatic and the world is fine, except you're still contagious. And then you start feeling crummy. And then you go for a while before you finally get sick enough that you go in. And even after you're tested and maybe you're in the hospital, it still takes time to get those numbers reported. Such that on average around the nation, there's about a 2.5 week lag between when you get the disease and when you actually show up. So when you look at these things, remember that you are looking at history rather than current events. So you could very loosely say, if these are what the cases look like, these were when the infections were. Now, one consequence of this that makes decision-making with COVID really hard is that we are ignorant about what is actually happening now. In fact, we are ignorant about what has been happening for about the last 2.5, 3 weeks, really, because of this delay. And not only that, if we do something, we're not going to see the consequences of what we do for another 2.5 weeks. So we're in a situation where we are trying to react to the situation as it was half a month ago, and we're not going to know what happened because of what we've done until half a month from now. And in that kind of a situation, trying to hurry things is a recipe for disaster. The first question again is, when did it happen? The next question is, what happened? So this is now Arizona, and Arizona has the very dubious distinction of being the place on the planet that has more COVID running around than any place on the planet has ever had, and it's only continuing to rise. So I look at some of your guys' numbers out there, and I'm wondering if you've got a house down the street. What happened? Well, again, when you look at what you see in the reports, those are the papers that show up in statistics. So here in Arizona, for example, clearly something happened there. We were cruising along like that, and the reproduction number a bit greater than 1, and then boom, it just takes off. So
If you're having trouble hearing, he's saying that this big leap here, actually, what happened 2.5 weeks earlier. We're just seeing it today.
That didn't occur here. Had a bit occurred back here.
Okay, so I just wanted to
Arizona, if you look back here, it turns out
you're ready to chat right now. And then in a minute,
look to the point that you can look at these things.
and so we have a little
What was going on then? Say, that's what was happening. In Arizona, I'll point out that a couple of weeks ago, it was decided that communities could put mask orders in place. Don't get me started on Governor Ducey. But we have no clue as yet as to what the actual consequences are. So if we were doing really good, effective distance learning here at this point, I would be interacting with you. And we would be doing formative assessments as I showed you things and had you work through them. But we're being old-fashioned, and I'm just talking at you right now. So we'll go ahead and do that. Here's New York. You look at New York, how do you interpret what you see? First thing you do is you say, I'm looking at what happened 2.5 weeks ago. Sure enough, what you see is here, back in early March, infections were going through the roof. The infection number was maybe something like 6.7. It was high. And then clearly something happened right here. And what happened right there is Cuomo locked down New York. So there it is. You can see it. You didn't see it in the numbers until 2.5 weeks later, but that's what happened. After that, the number of cases declined. And what you see here is just a simple exponential decline with a half-life of about 2.5 weeks. The thing I want to point out here is that what's happening is 2.5 weeks go by and the case numbers drop by a half. 2.5 weeks go by and the case numbers drop by a half. And 2.5 weeks go by and the case numbers drop by a half. That shape of the decline, which is this slow decline with a long tail, is how it works. So there's no such thing as just having all of that go to zero quickly. You just have to wait this thing out. Here's another example. This is now looking at the United States minus New York and New Jersey. And if you really want to understand just how awful a thing we have done to ourselves, this does it. Again, you look at it. What's the first thing you do? You think back in time. So this is where the infections were occurring. Sure enough, early on, you have growth. And then the growth suddenly turns into something that's level. Something must have happened right in there. Well, the thing that happened right in there was when we started having piecemeal shutdowns around the country. Sure enough, they flattened things, but they only flattened things. They took us to the point where the reproduction number was 1. It was just a flat, same number of cases day after day. Nothing was changing. And then you look here and say, that's where the infections are. Gee, I wonder what happened there. Oh, yeah, I forgot to say, just to provide context, if you remember Liberate Michigan, we're talking about Liberate Michigan time. This is where the reopenings were. And sure enough, as soon as we started reopening, there go the infections. We saw the reported cases. And again, there we were at our greater growth, and we have no idea what's going on there. Right now, people talk about, oh, we are seeing over 50,000 cases a day. The reality is we are probably seeing 70 or 80,000 transmissions already. And when you look back, by the way, at that period in there, that is a wasted 2 months. That had we shut down the nation the way that New York was shut down, it would have saved us. Let's look what would have happened. And I'm literally going to take this is not a made-up curve. This is actually what it would have looked like. We've done what New York did as a nation at this point. During those 2 months, people died. The economy took a huge hit. Tremendous amounts of money were spent, so on and so forth, and we accomplished nothing. If we had actually shut down, we would now be at a point where, like Europe, we could be opening up. So anyway, that's just kind of a glance at how you read these things. And that's important because across the nation, you guys see these data, wonder what it means for you. It is not difficult to get sense out of it once you have a few of these concepts.
I think it's on the bag.
You can listen.
Oh, it's this bag over here.
That's it.
In short, I'm sorry the sound was so terrible. Hey, I'm off mute. I did it right. Go me. The gist of it is, that one of the things that they used to gaslight used to say, well, blah is happening right now. And as you pointed out, this is history you're looking at. However many kids or adults you have with COVID, that was 2.5 years ago. If you're doing dumb things now, it won't show up for 2.5 weeks. And if you're doing smart things now, you'll have people sniping at you for 2.5 weeks, because that's when it comes up again. This is a chart prepared by Johns Hopkins University, and that I posted on here. You'll see this. The state is reporting 3.84, which is below the 4% that lets you open schools. But that is not what Johns Hopkins says. As of 3 a.m. yesterday, I did not have a chance to check this morning's numbers. We were nearly at 10%. We were just shy. So that tells you that it's on the upswing. Now, we don't have very many people. It is up to you whether we do breakout rooms or not, or if we're a group as a whole. What do you guys want to do?
I think let's keep going, and if people have questions or comments, they can type stack and we can address it.
Okay, so we're not going to do this breakout rooms. Okay, then.
I think we're good.
Is someone able to keep an eye on the stack for us? To say who's
I
up?
can.
Thank
Okay.
you, Elena. You
Sure,
are
no problem.
wonderful as always. Okay,
I'm gonna
Elena
stop.
had something on, speaking of stack, this is about Dr. Stack.
Right. Actually, I was also going to comment further on the test positivity issue, because in searching through the data, I was trying to figure out about how they're getting that 3 point whatever number versus the number that Johns Hopkins is showing. And I was able to find, searching through Johns Hopkins site, that there's a difference between the 7-day rolling average, which is what they're telling us on Kentucky's site, versus the daily test positivity rate. So those two things are very different, and they will give you a different snapshot of what's going on. So in telling us that test positivity rate, that's a 7-day rolling average, Kentucky's numbers are sounding much lower than they are if you look at that daily change in how many tests come back positive. So that's another confusing thing to the public that is being used to say, hey, we're good, let's go back. So, all right, so to Dr. Stack, I just took a couple of snippets from things. He spoke for almost an hour on the KHSAA and Kentucky Board of Ed meeting when they were trying to decide what to do about school sports. And I thought he said some very interesting things on there, and it was not very public because it was a 3-hour-long Zoom meeting, and you really would have to sit there and watch it to hear this information. So the first thing here, we'll have Yvonne click.
Our sound, oh God.
Was all the time. Well, that document, if I remember right, was published about June 24th. Well, look at where the bars were on the June 22nd to 28th. That was right. Again, that's what the base of an exponential growth curve looks like. 1482, 1675, 2482, 3772. There was no comfort that we were not going to continue that escalation and look like Georgia and Florida and other places. Now, mortality is just one statistic. I don't have a slide for this other stuff. I will tell you, as an emergency physician, I really do worry. I worry about a lot of things in society, but the general public does not fully appreciate what it looks like with a hospital that is completely full with an infectious disease pathogen, where nurses and doctors and therapists and others don't have the proper masks, the proper gowns. And back in March, there was the fear of the unknown. Now there's a lot more that's known. So the fear of the unknown has dissipated a bit. But the reality of being ill-prepared, not having the resources, being told to wear the same mask day in and day out for weeks on end is still an existing reality. The post-traumatic stress disorders and difficulties we're going to have in the clinical workforce in some of these cities that got hit real hard is a whole nother layer of concern. But all of us rely on all of them to be there when we get sick and need help. And so when I talk about mortality, one of the things we
Okay, so in that video, I think that this is a key point that we need to make when we are arguing, discussing with parents and with other community members who are trying to push kids into school. We need to remind them that if we overwhelm our hospitals, we are in trouble, okay? If you look at Boone County, we have, in Boone County area, we have a St. Elizabeth. We also have some Cincinnati hospitals that are nearby, some other ones that are in Campbell County and Kenton County. However, in Boone County alone, there are only 18 ICU beds, 18. And right now, according to, there's a site, and I have the link that I can share out. There is a COVID tracking site that tells you the area hospitals and capacity. Approximately 11 of those are already filled right now, with a possible 2 more to be filled in the next few days based on the data of how the virus is working. So if we send kids back to school and flood the system, we are in no better terms, we are screwed, okay? And that's something I think people need to think about. And when they argue, hey, nurses have to work and everyone else has to go to work. Well, if the nurses are getting sick because the school kids and teachers are overwhelming them, how does that help them at all? You know? So we are thinking about them too in this situation and not wanting to go back because we don't want more nurses or anyone else to get sick. And we would cause that overflow. This next thing he talks about, if the sound is wonky, I can stop and kind of reiterate what he says, but see if it sounds okay.
Yeah, please let me know, Elena, because it's to tell from my end if it's as wonky as it sounds on my end. So that's a triangle. Here we go.
We're going to move on because there's other points to be made here. So if we go to the next slide, please. And then here now I'm going to take it straight into schools. You all, and Julian said it very, very well, you can find an article to make any case you want to make almost in this. And so I'm making the case, having skimmed and read a whole lot of this stuff for months, the things that I'm kind of, and from my perspective, I think are helpful to you. There was a Commonwealth Report article, pretty short. I put the link down there. It just came out on the 11th. In here, it talks about, from looking at other countries, what is the single metric, if you can pick it, that will predict success in school reopening? And if you look right there, a low rate of community transmission is the most important factor. And what did I just show you on all those other graphs? The United States is not low. In fact, compared to most other developed nations, we are doing terribly as a nation overall. We have a lot more disease actively spreading than those other countries. That does not set us up well. Now, if you go to that link later, the article also identifies the behavioral health concerns, the lack of social support, depression, suicide, the loss of developmental milestones and things because education isn't happening like normal in other aspects. So the article is actually much more well-rounded than the point that I'm emphasizing. But when we talk about, so when do we open school or not, this is what they have found and what others have found. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So what's the CDC say? Now, here's a primary reason why the CDC is important here. One, because it has historically been one of our best scientific resources for public health. But two, it is no secret to anybody that President Trump and his senior administration have made it absolutely critical that people get back to school, right? So there are a lot of people who still have concerns. Are we ready? Are we safe? Or do we have everything we need to do? But be that as it may, it is unequivocally clear that the very senior levels of elected leadership in the United States have said, get the kids back to school.
And just today, President Trump tweeted once again about schools and getting kids back in school. So there you go. And in the rest of that video, and I've posted it on my page before, but Dr. Stack goes on to just keep reiterating and making the point that the virus back in March was a big mystery. Now, even though we know a lot of things about it, there's still a lot of unknowns. And one of those unknowns is how it's really going to affect people in the long run. And they're finding a lot of issues with children in myocarditis, which is the heart condition where after the virus, people's heart muscles are weak, heart muscle is weakened, and sometimes they will just collapse. And so Dr. Stack just makes the point over and over again that we don't want to use our children, our teachers, and our staff in schools to experiment with such an unknown virus. Who's next on the?
Thank you.
I'm
We may be ready to, without breakout groups, I think, open it up to discussion questions as a whole, or where do you want to go, Yvonne?
I was thinking now would be a good time to discuss things as a whole and then talk about, you know, how we're not meeting benchmarks. I think we discuss it without that because it's obvious we are not meeting the benchmarks. I mean, if you want to take a minute to see what they are, we can do that and then discuss. It's up to you guys.
I think one of the things that I wanted to discuss with this group of people is what are we willing to do? What is the best plan of action for Northern Kentucky, for Boone County, for Kenton County, Campbell County, Fort Thomas, for us to tell our superintendents it's not safe and we don't want to go back yet and that it's not safe for the kids. In fact, I just got word a Highlands, I don't know if it's a middle school or high school student tested positive. So, yeah. So what do you guys think? Anybody want to comment? If you want to comment, write stack in the chat. What are you worried about? What's everybody worried most about, and what do you think we can do? What ideas do you have? Okay, it's Kristen. It's on.
All right, so my thought, and people have talked about the sick out. Do you think that would be an effective way to get our point across, or do you think that would that backfire? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think Gay has a really good answer for that.
Say the question again. I heard, will it backfire? What was the?
Laugh out loud. She's putting you on the spot.
Sick out.
She's asking about sick outs.
So I think each district has to figure out what their critical mass number is. And in Jefferson County, I think it was around a third of our teachers had to call in order for it to be enough to put it over the top. And the concern is with NTI, you're not really not going to work in a building. So this idea, unless you're talking about when they do tell you to go back and you just don't go, that would be the time that I would think would be the right time to do it. And yeah, there's going to be backlash, but we're on the right side of history. So we just have to kind of take the backlash as it comes and address it with the next right answer, because they're always, this is their agenda. They're always going to try to manipulate and attack and bully and make something up. So you just have to know that that's coming and let it roll off your back. And they're not going to fire everybody at once. They can't. So it just takes a few people to kind of get together and say, we're going to take the punches as they come. And we got your back. Is that what you were asking?
Oh.
What are you doing out?
Got out. I mean, I didn't know it was getting.
It's tricky for sure.
I watched them.
And I'm kind of, I apologize, I'm halfway listening to a national call right now. You may have seen it on the Spectrum News. Collective national union organizations are looking at how we make some noise. And the teachers and and others are involved in the conversation. And I think that could make it easier for the unions or for the teachers in districts that are feeling very repressed. So keep an ear on the news, I guess I'll say.
Okay, Yvonne is next on stack.
I think I'm an old lady, okay? So, which is usually bad. But one good thing is that you remember things people have forgotten because you're old and you were there. In the 1980s in Texas, late 80s, they had a big panel on how to fix education in Texas. And everybody in the free world was consulted except teachers. Because what the hell do we know about it? So this is really one more battle of dignity. I don't know, but I suspect no one here was consulted. No one in Boone County who was a teacher or Campbell or Kenton was asked, do you think that having kids sneezing on you is good? Because they do not treat us with dignity. They don't think that we're like real people who should be treated with respect. So this is the biggest issue in education in a long, long time. But it's still a facet of what they've been doing to us for 20 years. You know what? You don't need textbooks. You know what? You can handle 5 extra kids in your class. You know what? We don't need to pay for PD. You can pay for that out of your own pocket. Kids don't need pencils. That's what they got the teacher for, to buy it for. You know, they treat us in ways, Kay says, the beatings will continue until morale improves. Exactly. You know, this is an opportunity to say, even outside of this, we deserve dignity. We deserve to be treated with respect. And our kids should not be afterthoughts. It shouldn't be a case of what is the minimum we can provide without everything going up in flames. And I'm sure that's, you know, it's happened in Jefferson County. I'm sure it's happening where you are, where if your kids are going to have pencils, you bought them. Extra paper, you bought it. You're saying, this kid, you know, this kid needs more services. You know, blah, 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 blah. Why are you making trouble, Yvonne? So, you know, this is really twofold because they've forgotten you can't have school without us. You know, they have this dream of putting everybody on some big screen and having some robot teach them for next to nothing. They may have that dream, but that day is not here yet. So I will shut up now. I should have shut up a while ago, but.
Do we have anybody else who wants to make a comment? I want to say something that Gay told me the other night when we were talking, and I was talking about the fact that Boone County did not give us a choice in what the plan was. They they surveyed us only after I asked for a survey, and other people asked for it as well, but no one listened until I wrote that letter to the governor and KEA and everything, and then I get a call from the president. I'm a newbie in Boone County. I taught there before, but I'm a newbie again. She called me. She wouldn't even talk to the union reps, okay? So the point is that they're trying to fish to see, these are Gay's words the other night, they're fishing to see what we will do and what we won't do. So the fact that they implied that we were to teach from the buildings, but they never specifically told us any plan that said you have to report, to see if we would show up. We did. And then people started to complain about showing up. And then they go, oh, okay, well, who actually wants to work from home or has to work from home? It wasn't a want, it was has to, or you would have to take leave. And then they didn't include Wednesdays on that. So they weren't clear on that part because they wanted us to come in on Wednesdays. The virus doesn't get you on Wednesdays, apparently, in Boone County. So again, it's this fishing and fishing for what will we get these teachers to do so that the parents don't complain that we're not working. So stack to Gay.
I also want to mention, I thought I saw Alexandria go on unmute and ready to say something earlier. So let's get back to her at some point.
Okay, so you want me to go ahead and go? I was just going to reiterate that this is all, don't forget, this is all tied to the privatization agenda, trying to speed up the demise of public education so that they can further their agenda. This is disaster capitalism. I encourage you to read a couple of books if you haven't already. Dark Money is the one that first opened my eyes to all the inner workings, the ALEC and the Koch brothers and all the people that are behind the scenes getting people elected to office so they can change laws that work against us. And they're predators. They're trying to siphon money out of our community. So just keep all of that in mind. Always ask what's the agenda because they're not on your side. And oh, the other thing I was going to mention is in Madison County, they had a similar situation where they asked teachers if they had to work from home or what have you. And then they made it look like they had found solutions. But then when teachers actually asked, those positions were already gone. And, you know, teachers ended up having to take FMLA because there weren't enough work from home positions available for the teachers that were at risk. And so, you know, that's happening all over the state. And we need to partner with other districts across the state and elevate those concerns collectively.
Alexandra.
So I have a lot of questions about the legality of what a lot of these districts are forcing teachers to do. Like Yvonne said, if there aren't teachers to do the job, what do they plan on doing? And I think the only way that we're going to get them to listen is if we prove, yeah, I'm just not going to go into work because you're not listening to our concerns. We voiced our concerns in surveys and emails and phone calls in numerous different ways, and parents aren't listening to us. I don't feel like really anybody is listening. So I think the only way is through actions. And when, I don't think it's an if anymore, it's when they try and force us back into the schools, we all have to say, well, I'm just not going to, what can they do? If I don't show up, then they have to go, oh crap, nobody's here. So unfortunately, it's going to, you know, like I think Gay was saying, there's going to be backlash, and there's probably going to be some hate that we're going to get. But I mean, look at what happened with the sick out right before we got Andy, you know, when Bevan was in office. I think the only weapon that we have is not showing up, which is sad because we love the kids and that's terrible. But
That was a perfect lead into the day of action, which I think we need to talk about that and what we're going to plan to do, because then we can take next steps. Do we have the slide deck again that has some info about that?
Well, do we want to go back up and hear about like the Kentucky COVID-19 benchmarks and the ones we're not following? Is my question.
Yeah, I think I've had conversations with pretty much everyone on this call currently about that. So I think we're good. We know we're not meeting those benchmarks.
Okay, fair enough. Give me a second to find share again. There we go. Where do you want to go, Elena? I'm sorry.
There's a slide that talks about September 30th. I think it's down below this, actually.
It is just
It
amazing
is
how
28.
the picture gets in the way of whatever I'm.
One more.
Sorry.
One more,
Scroll
Greg.
one more, Greg. There it is.
So I'm, in our area, I'm trying to figure out what people want to do, are willing to do, what they think might be the best plan of action. So I've tried kind of putting a Google form out on my site, but only about 8 people filled it in. So I don't know what to do necessarily beyond what I've already done to kind of get some ideas from people for what to do or what people want to do. So Kristen, Andrea, Alexandra, anybody who has ideas. I think Lindsay's still on here.
Do you want me to describe what a motor march looks like?
Yeah,
Some
sure.
of us have done them. Okay, this is sort of a safe in both senses of the word. First of all, you're not next to anybody who might infect you or who you might infect. I'm always thinking, I don't want to infect anybody else either, right? I'm an old lady. I'll probably pass it easier than anybody else. So, but it's also safe from retaliation point of view because you're inside your car with your mask on. They don't know who you are. And so you pick a site that's going to get attention. So maybe your Board of Education right before their meeting when they're coming in. And the great thing about a motor march is it multiplies how many people you have. If you've got 10 cars and you're going around the block, it sure looks like 40. I'm here to tell you. And, you honk and yell out the thing, not until it's safe or, save our kids or, whatever else you want to do.
You talked about corpses to me the other night. You're like, you only need a few corpses to make a point.
Oh, yeah, you can have a die-in. If you have people who are really nervous, like really, I don't want anybody to know I'm doing this because my principal comes on a broomstick. So what you do is we have these costumes with the Grim Reaper, and they have these little things that go over your face. So nobody knows who you are. You're some guy with a scythe, right? And the great thing about die-ins is you don't need that many corpses. If you've got 10 dead people will be talking about it for weeks. You don't, with a rally, if you can't turn out 100, people are making fun of you. But with a die-in, you just need 10 Grim Reapers and a loudmouth who will explain what's going on and make people feel bad.
Alexandra had something to say. She's on stack.
So I left, I'll be honest, I left my teaching job because I was put into a corner of feeling unsafe or we were not given the option to work from home. We were basically told to quit or ... And the ... I think, Elena, you mentioned this too. They're trying to push us to see what we'll do. And I'm young enough that I think it's silly because we don't know the long-term effects. Just because I'm young, I think it's silly for people to just go, oh, your life is expendable. Because I don't have kids, I don't think it's fair to say your life is expendable. So I said, I'm gonna walk. And more people around me after I left said, I wish I could have done what you did, but I'm scared. So I don't know how you reach people who are also scared, but they're not scared enough to leave. I don't know how you bridge that gap because there are people who don't want to be doing what they're doing. And I think more people are afraid of being fired, which I just don't think is a reality. I don't think that they can't afford to fire all of us because they're screwed. They're up a creek and without a paddle. So I don't know how to anonymously maybe reach people in your schools, in your districts that are like-minded, and then go to a higher authority with, hey, we've got 100 people in Kenton, Boone, and Campbell County in the Fort Thomas school districts. how can you ignore us now, kind of thing. So whatever, yes, Elena says letters to just be as loud as we can and inundate them. I thought about going to the media as well. I haven't done it yet, but I have emails saved from things that were not ever responded to with my departure. So,
Well, there's a Louisville newspaper reporter hot to talk to you, Alexandra.
oh really?
Elena can hook you up.
Okay. My husband is definitely wanting me to, and you know, other people that I've talked to and know my situation, everything that I've said, it's like, that's not legal what they're telling teachers to do. It's not, you cannot tell a teacher you feel unsafe, so you have to quit. Another teacher of mine who also a friend quit, asked about FMLA, and our principal said no. And I don't know how that's legal.
That is not legal.
I didn't think so. And she's got a pre-existing condition. She's got a genetic kidney disease, and so does her mom. And she gave a kidney to her mom so that her mom could live. And when she asked about that the day that she went to pack up her classroom, he basically said, well, I was going to contact our superintendent, never did. And then said, well, could you contact him again? And he said, I just don't think that that's a possibility. Like, you can either stay and basically suck it up, or you can continue cleaning out your classroom. So she left, because what are you going to do?
And you know, if she goes to the media, there's a great chance they will hire her back, because you know what? The media solves so many problems. You can't have this, you can't have the, oh man, we sure looked bad in the newspaper. You know what? I don't know what we were thinking. Yes, we can do all those things we said we couldn't do.
Right. Yep. I had a meeting at the very early part of July when we were seeing numbers rise after the 4th of July. And we started meeting with our principals, and they didn't wear masks in the meeting. So we knew immediately that they weren't taking it seriously. And I called my dad afterwards, and he said, I think they're trying to see if you're going to sue. I think they wanted to bring you in to see how mad you all were, to see if you were actually the type of person to take legal action, which is unfortunate. But I think that's pretty much where we're all at, is that if you're going to push me, I mean, teachers are resilient and we're feisty, and I don't think what's going to happen is not going to be pretty. The outcome is going to be a fight from us, you know.
I think also there are quite a few of us who are afraid, because of the retaliation that we've already faced in different jobs, or even in the job that we currently have, because we are told lots of times, don't do this or you will get fired, and don't go on social media, don't talk to kids outside of school, there's so many don'ts, and there's so many ethical things that we're supposed to do, or moral obligations that we have, and so many unspoken rules that they have for us, that I feel like a lot of people are afraid, what can I do? And that's where we come in, that we need a group of people to all do it together. So I think if no one else, oh, Yvonne, go ahead.
Just something to be thinking of is, one of the advantages we have is these people are so freaking predictable. Oh my God. You know, the first line of defense is always going to be, they're going to play the pity card. Elena, how can you sick out? What about the kids? So have your script ready and remind them, I'm so glad. Oh, I had a bad year where I finally got overstaffed. She couldn't get rid of me any other way, and I got overstaffed. And every time I said, I'm so glad you said that, she cringed, because she knew it was going to be ugly. So you say, I am so glad you said that. Now you get it. We're doing this for the kids. I'm so glad you see it. So flip that script on them, because it's just like Alexandra said. I had chickenpox at 7 years old. I didn't know I'd get shingles at 60. We know nothing about this. And we've got young people and kids getting this, and we don't want to find out in 30 years, oh, dang, having COVID with no symptoms where you didn't feel bad one single day, 30 years later causes X, because we don't know.
So September 30th, guys, I'm going to be trying to get together what we should do. I'm going to look up when all the board meetings are for all the NKY schools. I'm willing to go to other people's schools. That's another thing too. We talked a lot, and this is in other groups I've talked with as well, about being a good neighbor. Talk to the neighboring school district. If you're afraid to ask the questions, or just because they could retaliate if you ask the questions, or they might answer your questions differently knowing that you're an employee of the district, ask the district you live in questions like, how are you keeping the kids safe? What is your plan if this happens? How many substitutes do you have? All sorts of questions. What's your ventilation system like? Have you updated it? Are you allowed to open windows? There's a lot of questions that we can ask that just gets the wheels turning that, oh, this is something we need to think about.
The other thing you want to ask is 2 questions. One is, how many kids are in a class? Because in most districts is however many their parents don't want to keep them home. That's not a ratio. That's a, hey, if 90% show up, you got 90% of them. If half of them show up, you got lucky. That's not a strategy. That's a whatever. And the other thing to ask is how buses work. When JCPS was still talking about opening up in person, they had this great bus plan. It was so great. If they were going to have kids go in, so, in the back, and then they were going to leave in the same order they got on so they wouldn't pass each other. But you know what? Like, their germs don't move around. They weren't sitting them every other seat. They were packing them in like always. But they were going to have masks on, and then, the first kid in would be the last one off, and that solves everything. I don't think so. So ask about bus plans, because those are always really revealing.
I just think that no matter what, we can make the case that nothing is truly safe with the numbers the way they are right now, because I'm seeing 15 kids they're going to put in one of my classes on the hybrid plan. And of course they're going to say, yeah, well, that's half, but the reality is that it's not necessarily half. Those hybrid plans, the best working out they could do, which I don't even know how they worked these things out. Some classes have 9 kids when your B-Day class has 15 kids. And either way, the teacher's the vector, and I have kids who I know hang out together because they're on the Google Meets together in the same bedroom, but one's an A day and one's a B day. It's insane. And on top of that, the fact that I'm already reading so many horror stories on Reddit. I don't know if you guys are fans of Reddit, but Reddit is pretty much anonymous, and there's a lot of teacher groups there, and there are so many people who have told stories about their hybrid plans or just going back in person at all, and it's absolutely terrifying. And I want to include some of those stories in any letter that I write, because there are links to these on the internet. So, okay, Alexandra.
So kind of like what Yvonne said with bus plans, is the whole idea about sports is really concerning to me as well. And I know a lot of, it started in Fort Thomas just because I know a lot of people who live and teach there. And so I was talking with parents and teachers in that district safely, so I didn't get fired. And if they chose remote learning until Christmas, they were not allowed to participate in sports, which makes sense. But now that's why parents have decided, well, I don't want to do that, because how dare my child not play the sport during a global pandemic, which is a whole other thing that I don't understand. But, we still have kids at the high school that I left, all of my students had senior night tonight, and they're all playing a very close contact sport right next to each other with no masks. And it's volleyball, so they're playing other teams from other cities that are probably hot spots. And I don't even know how you contact trace that. So that to me is another big piece that we already lost, because KHSAA decided to go ahead with sports, even though CPS, Cincinnati Public Schools, have decided not to have sports. So I don't know how you reverse that decision, but that would have been a really big win. So I kind of think that when, volleyball and football and soccer players start testing positive, which has already started to happen. This 14-year-old in Fort Thomas is a football player. So now parents are freaking out because Highlands is all about football. That's their big thing. Once parents start catching wind of that, I think they're going to start hopefully pulling kids out and going, this wasn't safe. Now it's my kid. I don't care about kid B over in Hardin County. I care about my kid. My kid got it, which is terrible, but that's sort of the reality that we're in.
You're on mute.
I'd like to add a couple points to that. I thought you brought up a lot of good issues. So we've seen a lot of school choice being applied, and if you're going to ask teenage children whether or not they're going to live forever, I think you're going to get an 80% response rate of hell yeah. And so why are we using that as a measure to send kids back to school? I think there's a military industrial complex question to be asked around where if the football military crew is driving the conversation, then yes, they're going to want to get back to school and get playing football. And I like sports as much as anybody, but I think we've got some very slanted measures, and it's not even being questioned. I had a third point, but I didn't write it down, so I'll leave it there.
Well, it's getting close to 8:30, and I want to let everybody get on with their evening. So I think the important thing to do next is us to make sure that we have some information out there to share with people who couldn't make it. I've already gotten messages from a lot of people saying they had trouble with phones and different things, and they wanted to know what was discussed. And then, sorry for my daughter here, she's singing. So I really want to get some plans together for the day of action. And I also want to write more letters. I think the letter that I kind of started the group with was pretty effective. And I want to put in there more links to stories, because now some of the headlines are how many teachers are dying. 3 weeks into most schools starting, and we've already had at least 3 deaths, which is absolutely terrifying. So if let's see, Greg, Yvonne, Gay, anybody have some more stuff? Am I forgetting something? I'm sure I am.
No, one last thing about other opportunities to waste your evenings. Can you bring up slide 30? And that is other town halls. We're having one tomorrow on police-free schools. They were going to have an armed police officer at my elementary. Like, don't do that. And on Saturday, you know, as Gay was talking about how disaster capitalism, there's a book called on that by Naomi Klein about how they'll take advantage of a disaster, and then and one of the things they're going to use the COVID pandemic for is to make further cuts to schools. So there's a town hall on Saturday that National Educators United is having on how to fight those cutbacks. You know, when they talk about defunding the police, people have a cow, but they've been defunding education for 10 years. And, you know, and for some reason people think that's okay. And so they have trillions of dollars to give to hedge fund managers. They got money for our kids. And I'll shut up.
And it's a better investment on the front end. It costs us less to educate our youth than it does to incarcerate them. So let's spend our money up front.
Thank you guys, Yvonne and Greg and Gay. Thank you so much for helping put this together for us at short notice, and making the links. All the work that you guys have done is amazing. And I'm getting messages like crazy of people who had issues like fussy babies or different things going on tonight. So definitely we'll be sharing out this information, and I will be planning a motor march and writing more letters. So
let us know how we can support you.
Exactly.
I will. Thank you guys so much.
Please, let's stay in touch. And I'm going to put in a plug for Place Free Schools, NEU Town Hall tomorrow night, because I just think it gets so lost on our statewide community, how connected all these pieces are. And I'm part of a group that worked for restorative practices and lobbied for 10 years to get police out of schools. And then they turn around and we hear no pushback from teacher unions around both gang bills and the emergency. We've got to have armed uniformed police in every school. And it's, we're heading down a bad path with that. And I'm ready to cook my fellow teacher union members that aren't going to stand behind racial justice, because I think that's where we are.
Thank you so much, guys. We know how hard you've worked and what a hard day you have, and to be here on a Thursday.
Again. All right. I'll be posting some stuff probably tomorrow because it's been a long day.
Right before we quit, Gay, are we going to have a recording of this on the KEU site? Yes.
So it takes
awesome.
a long time to download and whatever, but so I'm glad to hear Elena say tomorrow, because I can work on this tomorrow as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a permanent marker. Permanent marker. All right. Thank you
so
again,
much, guys.
Have a good night. See some faces.